you all of you for joining the talk. So my name, as Dr. Joyita has already said, my name is Ankur Gupta and I'm presently working as a senior research scientist in Curatech Biologics. So topic of today's presentation is biosimilars. So in this presentation, I will give you an overview of what biosimilars are, how its process development is done, and at the end of the talk, I will touch base with a few of the results from upstream process development. So basically, what I do in the organization. So I will try to keep it as simple as possible so that it does not get boring. So any questions, anything we can take at the end of the presentation. So when we hear a word biosimilar, the basic questions come: what biosimilar products are? So as per FDA definition, a biosimilar is a biological product that is highly similar to and has no clinically meaningful differences from the existing approved reference product. So here reference product means an innovative product that has already been approved by an FDA. So in this definition, two words that come to in our mind is highly similar, and other word is no clinically meaningful difference. So what does it mean by a highly similar product? That means a proposed biosimilar product should be highly similar to a reference product in terms of structure and its function, and its characteristics such as purity, chemical identity, and bioactivity must be compared with a reference product. That means an innovator and approved product. The other thing that is quite obvious in this definition is no clinically meaningful difference. What does it mean? It means that it should have no clinically meaningful difference when compared with the reference product in terms of safety, purity, and potency. So the next question is why biosimilar? So what biosimilar has done in area of healthcare is that it provided a patient with more treatment options, has increased access to life-saving medication, and it has the potential to lower the healthcare cost through competition. How it is done, we will get to know in the coming slide. So profile here which you see is denotes a biosimilar market and how it has grown over the period of time. So in the profile, the different color represents different area. That means different region of which market has been estimated. So if we see from 2020, it was estimated to be around $11.8 billion, and by 2025 it is estimated to increase up to $25.7 billion. That means approximately 3 times. So the major reason being that this is because by 2024 many of the patents are getting expired. So moving ahead, so if we see what is the difference between a innovative product and a biosimilar, uh, in terms of process development. If we look into a process development of a new medicine, so it usually takes more than 10 years, or in terms of more specifically, it is around 10 to 12 years for a development of one molecule, and it costs around $2.6 billion. That is, it means that it is a huge investment, as well as along with this investment it takes time, as well as there is the chances of failure is very high, because we never know at which stage failure could occur. So if we see a blue arrow over here, it shows different phases of a drug development. So it starts with the discovery of a molecule, which further goes for a process development, where the processes are developed so that this molecule can be produced to make it a economically viable process. Once a process is set, it goes for a non-clinical trial. That means a preclinical trial. Then comes clinical phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So for an innovative product, this is a very resource consuming, time consuming process, as well as it has a high chances of failure. So usually For an innovator molecule, this clinical phase become very important. In contrast, when we see for biosimilar, it starts with analytical phase, then it goes for non-clinical, then comes a clinical phase 1, and for a biosimilar molecule, it directly goes from phase 1 to phase 3. And also these studies are abbreviated, so lot of time and resources are saved at this during clinical phase. So if I talk in a layman language, it is like a generic product, but compared to generic, these biosimilar are biological products. That means their process development is its process development part is more rigorous, because in a generic, you most of the generic products are chemically synthesized. So once a process is developed, you can replicate it. Basically, you have to just replicate it. But in biosimilars or a biological product, lot of variability is observed. So that's why this development of biosimilar is more tedious task. So moving ahead. So if we see in this slide, if you see, so phase these two triangles denotes of different phases of a process development of reference product as well as a biosimilar. So as I have already discussed, it has, in both the cases, there are same stages, basically analytical, preclinical, phase 1, in this phase 2 as well as phase 3. However, in this biosimilar, it goes from phase 1 to phase 3. So different color in the triangle, if you see, it represents the amount of time and resource invested for a particular phase. So looking into a reference, if you basically look into a reference product development phase, clinical studies take lot of cover the area under the clinical study is far more compared to a biosimilar product development. So in biosimilar, if we look into it, so majority of the time is invested in analytical phase. So during this phase, if we look more closely, most of the drug development uh, is happens here. Most of the product characterization happens here. So basically, in this phase, product development and comparative analysis is done, as well as process development, scale up, as well as validation is done. So the major difference between the two is, like we say, for a reference product is first to clinic. However, for biosimilar, it is first to market. So moving ahead, how actually this process development is done, we will discuss in the next slides. So for a process development of a biosimilar molecule, it's basically done in 4 stages. It starts with a recombinant cell line development. Basically, at this stage, a recombinant cell line is developed, clone screening is done, as well as its stability is checked and banks are prepared. So once a clone is finalized, it goes for a bioprocess development. So in bioprocess development, basically it is where cell culture process development happens. The next, once a process is established, so in this phase, just remember for the next part of this presentation, that this in this bioprocess development or upstream process development phase, there are two major objectives. One is to get a high titer, and the next part is to have an acceptable product quality. So what does these two things do? Like, if we target for a high titer to make a process economically feasible and profitable, while acceptable product quality is required. So by acceptable product quality, I mean is quality that is that is matching to reference standard. Okay, so these two are the major objective of upstream process development. Then when a process is stabilized, material goes to a purification for a purification process development. In this phase, the material generated in upstream phase is purified. So major objective of this is to have a high recovery. So whatever product that has been generated, the objective is to recover as much product as possible in the upstream process development phase. So in this phase, drug substance is generated. So once drug substance is generated, it is basically goes for a formulation. So once a formulation is done, uh, it leads to a formation of drug product. So these are the four phases of a biosimilar process development. So what we are doing in these four phases? So generally, what happens when a clone is selected, we look for the primary criteria to select a clone is titer as well as product quality. But at clone selection stage, what we see is lot of variability in the quality of protein produced. Okay, so as we go about doing a process development, our objective is to narrow down this variability. So by the end of the process development, it is targeted to have a consistent product quality. So process develop should over the period of time or should be reproducible and yield a consistent product quality. So now so I would like to focus on a bioprocess development part. So this basically this is my area of expertise is, and this is what we do in the organization. So what is done during an upstream process development? So this is basically a upstream process development workflow is, so once a clone is handed over to a upstream process development group, I have already told that we have two primary objective in mind to get a high titer as well as acceptable product quality. So we generally start with a screening of media and feeds. So that is suitable for a particular molecule. So this is generally done at a shake flask stage where different medias and feed screening is done. So once we get an optimum process or a high yielding process, the next point. So there are two criteria for selection at each stage. So like I have already mentioned, titer as well as product quality. So once we get a process yielding a desired titer or a high titer and acceptable product quality, we go into next phase of the process development. That is, it is basically done at microbioreactor stage, where so use of microbioreactors help us in saving resources as well as time, because at a time a lot of parameters and lot of condition can be screened in a controlled environment. So at this stage, we go for process parameter interaction, that is screening. That means lot of process parameters are screened at a time to get an optimum process. So once this process is finalized, this further confirmation runs are taken at a lab scale bioreactor. So this is basically of 2 liters, 5 liter or 10 liter depending upon the availability. So once we 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 show that we are getting a consistent results, it is basically process is basically transferred from lab to a pilot scale. So where bioreactors are generally at a scale of 20 liters to 50 liters. So this is first time when this process is scaled up or process scalability is tested. So this is where a process transfer happens. So so in the next set of the in the next slides, I will discuss result of few of the experiment that was done in each of the phases. So in this slide, the results you see is so actually there I have taken it from a paper. So due to confidentiality issue, I cannot show the actual result, but this I have taken for a discussion purpose from the paper, where author have screened screen 7 of the condition including control, and this is how actual result in upstream process development looks like, where the first is the first profile. If you see, this is of viable cell count, where the experiment was run over the period of 14 days, and there was 7 conditions that were screened. So and each day's sample was taken and analyzed for viable cell count as well as viability. So if you see, different conditions resulted in different profile, and this is a typical cell growth profile where we start with a lag, then comes a log phase, then cells goes in a stationary phase, and then decline starts. So by day 7 and 8, the peak VCC was observed in different conditions, and peak VCC was observed in the range of 25 million cells per ml, and all the conditions were harvested at viability of greater than 60%. So looking into a tighter profile, so this is basically we see how amount of protein yielded. So if we see, by it is a time course study where authors have analyzed uh, the protein produced from day 9 to day 14, and if we see that by day 14 they were able to get a process which was yielding around 1.8 gram per liter. So this is the So now at this stage, we finalized one condition, which is a higher yielding condition. So next part of the study will be to look into a product quality. That is the the, the quality of protein that is produced. So of all the product quality, these are the these are the 3 most important product quality we generally look at. That is glycosylation profile, charge heterogeneity, and aggregation. So starting with a glycosylation profile. So this is basically, glycosylation basically happens during post-translational modification. And it is basically a process of attachment of oligosaccharides to a polypeptide backbone of the protein. So this occurs basically in endoplasmic reticulum and Golgi apparatus. So why it is important? Why it is important to look into a glycosylation profile? Because it determines the ADCC and CDC property of the molecule, as well as pharmacokinetics, clearance rate, as well as immunogenicity. So looking into other product quality profile, that is charge variant or charge heterogeneity. So during the production of antibody, if we take an example, so it goes through a chemical degradation where through diverse mechanisms such as deamidation, basically uh, oxidation, isomerization, and fragmentation. So what happens that that results in several charge variant heterogeneity formation, consequently modifying its PI value. So basically, 2 type of charge variants are generated. That is acidic variants that elute at lower PI, main peak, that is which having a normal PI, as well as a higher PI, that is a basic variance. So what does it does? Why it is important to look into a charge heterogeneity of the molecule? Because it determines the stability, binding affinity, chemical property of the molecule. So next comes the aggregation. So as the name suggests, it is the molecule get aggregated, due to which high molecular weight species get formed. So because of this aggregation, it results in a loss of activity of the intact protein, or it may lead to a new isotope formation that may lead to an adverse immune response. So these are the most important product profile that is generally looked at. So there are other product quality profile too, like disulfide isoforms or glycation. But for the want of time, I've limited this talk to focus on these 3 product quality profile that we generally look at. So looking each of this product profile individually. So like glycosylation, like I have already discussed that this glycosylation, one antibody is formed, it happens in uh, at endoplasmic reticulum as well as Golgi body stage. So what basically is happening in this, to understand like to get an acceptable product profile, there are several of the time we need to modulate it. So to modulate it, we actually, it's a requirement that we come to know what is actually happened in the cell and what is leading to uh, this type of product profile, so that we can modulate accordingly. So looking closely into a post-translation modification, so it start with a protein produced, and with the help of oligosaccharide transferase, a polypeptide get attached to it, and then with the, because of several enzyme as well as precursors, this protein as well as polypeptide, this complex system get processed further, resulting into a glycosylation of the antibody. So what are the major factors that are leading to this modification? That is availability of precursor, transportation of precursor, enzyme availability, and its activity. So, so now if we want to modulate a product quality, what are the factors we have? On one hand, we have certain process levers as well as media levers. So I will talk about these two things in the next part of my slides. So if at upstream stage we have these two levers, if we modulate this, and we if we have to modulate it to get a desired product quality. So now I will discuss about one of the experiment we have done for a glycosylation profile modulation. So this is a bit busy slide, but I want you all to focus on the first profile. Uh, that is a terminal galactosylated species, and that too on a control condition. So just focus on this blue dots. So as I have mentioned that this is a control condition. So this is an example where we have received a clone that is yielding a glycosylation profile or a product profile that is not matching to a reference standard. So just be with me on this. So if you look into the control condition and the blue dots, so this blue dots represent a percentage terminal electrosylated species of the molecule. This red trace over here shows the lower spec limit, and this green trace over here shows the upper spec limit. So from where this spec limit we have got, so this is generally we get the spec limit by analyzing different lots of a reference product. So as you all know that biologics material have lot of variability. So because of this variability, we get to see a different galactosylation level in different lots of a same products. So our aim is to get the product profile that is within this range. So that's how we develop a biosimilar to a reference product. So this is a control condition where a molecule is yielding lower galactosylated species, lower fucosylated species, and and the last profile, if you see a higher mannose level, mannose species. So this higher mannose species is not desirable, because higher mannose means a faster clearance rate. So now how we go about modulating the product quality of the molecule. So if we see the next condition, that is where control condition plus a media lever is written. This media lever, so literature shows that there are many additives, presence of which in a media leads to a modulation in the glycosylation species. So in the first experiment, what we have done along with the all the condition keeping same as of control, we have added a media levers. So if we see, the effect of the media lever was directly visible, and with the presence of media lever, increase in galactosylation species was observed. However, the increase was evident in galactosylated species, but in terms of fucosylation, there was increase, but not much. However, in terms of manosilation, if we see, there was a decrease in manose species, but still that was out of the reference standard ranges. So what was the next option we have? So next option we have was to modulate a process lever. So here in this case, what we have done, we have used a strategy of pH. So in next two condition, we have run a culture with on different pH. That means pH shift strategy was used. So with a, if you see in the next two condition, with a change in pH, a slight increase in galactosylation level was observed. However, looking into a fucosylated species, if we see the there was a drastic increase in fucosylation level in both the condition. However, the PHS1 was better compared to PHS2. Now, in terms of manosilation level, if we see, it also brought this percentage manose species within the spec limit of a reference product. So by this, it was evident that if we modulate the process lever as well as media lever, we are going to get a product quality that is similar to a a reference product. So say all these same conditions were also ran at different temperature. So to check if this change in temperature is also bringing any desired effect. So in terms of if we see that with a change in temperature, there was an effect, but not it was not bringing any much significant effect in terms of galactosylation level. So this is a example where by using a media and process lever, we were able to modulate a galactosylation species. Now in the next slide, we are going to see how with a change in process lever, we are getting to see change in the other product profile. So this is a typical example where charge variant distribution at different temperature was evaluated. In the first profile, if you see, it shows a acidic variance. In the second profile, you see a main species, and a third profile, it represents a basic species. So the black solid bars are the profile from the experiment which was run at 37 degrees Celsius. In the shaded bars are from the experiment where strategy of temperature shift was used and temperature was shifted from 37 to 35 degrees Celsius. And in the white bar, the temperature shift was further lowered to 32 degrees Celsius. So if we see in the 37 degrees experiment with 37 degrees Celsius, increase in acidic variants were observed over the period of time from day 6 to day 16. However, main species was observed to be decreasing, and with basic species till day 12 it was observed to be increasing, and thereafter decrease was observed. So what is the effect of so it clearly shows that with increase in at 37 degrees Celsius, with time, increase in acidic species is observed. So what is the effect of a temperature shift? So if we look into a temperature shift, it clearly shows that with temperature shift, lowering of acidic species is observed in all the conditions. That means a temperature shift strategy is helping to lower down the acidic species. Looking into a main profile, it is decreasing over the period of 16 days. However, looking into a basic profile, if we see, compared to 37 degrees Celsius, with temperature shift, increase in basic profile is observed at the later part of the culture duration, that is day 14 to day 16. Now we are going to look into how what is the effect of temperature on aggregation. So these are two sets of experiment which were conducted at different temperature, and two different strategy was evaluated. In one of the in first experiment, if we see, there is the culture was run at different temperature. So throughout the experiment of 14 days, a constant temperature of 33, 34, 35, 36.5, 37.5, and 38.5 degree was maintained. And if any and it is evident that with a change in temperature, the high molecular weight species getting reduced. So this is a typical challenge where a high molecular weight species are producing in a culture. So this this is a typical problem in what we face, that a high molecular species is getting generated, and with the use of temperature, we do able to modulate this species percentage of this species. So however, the effect of temperature varies from molecule to molecule. So in this case, if we see, higher temperature is leading to a lower high molecular weight species. So in the next set of experiment, if you see, in this case, what is happening, a strategy of temperature shift was evaluated, where uh, culture was run till a particular day, and then thereafter temperature shift is given. So normally what is a basic principle is, the temperature shift is given to seize down the growth, so that cell invest most of, so cell normally uses its energy for replication as well as post translation modification or protein production. But the objective here is to reduce the cell growth, so that most of the energy get channelized toward protein production, and also it gives more time for a post translation modification. So here if we see, uh, during over the culture duration, in between the culture, the temperature was reduced from 36.5 to 32. In the next set of experiment, were reduced from 36.5 to 33.5, and the third, in the next set, it was reduced from 36.5 to 35. So if we see the condition where the temperature was reduced to 32 degrees Celsius, high molecular weight species were comparatively high, compared to a condition where the 36 temperature was reduced to 35. That means a higher temperature is leading to a lower high molecular weight species formation, whereas when temperature is reduced, it is leading to high percentage of high molecular weight species formation. So this is basically how we use our different strategy of using a process as well as media lever to modulate the product quality. There are lot more permutation combination are possible, and lot more strategies are used. But for the just to make it simple, I have put this three strategies as well as three example where we have where the different levers have been used for modulation of different product quality. So basically, during development of biosimilar, the objective is to match to get close to, as much as possible, close to a innovator profile. So in this schematic, I have tried to give you a glimpse of how commercial scale, the process flows at a commercial scale. So basically, it starts with a cell culture. So if you see, uh, it starts with a cell culture where while thaw is done, the cells revived are generally expanded at a shake flask. So objective here in this to for this seed generation or seed expansion is to get enough cell mass to inoculate a production bioreactor. For this, at each state, volume of culture increases. So in this, generally after while thaw, it is expanded in a shake flask. Generally 2 or 3 passages is done, where at each passage the amount of culture is increased. From shake flask, last stage, it goes to a wave bioreactor stage. Wave bioreactor or a seed bioreactor depends upon the availability and how the process is developed. Generally 2 or 3 passages are given at this stage. If and then it was further expanded to a higher scale bioreactor, which is typically called as an N-1 stage seed bioreactor. From there, it is transferred to a main production bioreactor. Now, from material from this production bioreactor goes to for a purification. where different chromatographic steps are performed to obtain a desired protein to obtain a protein produced. So basically, at this stage, drug substance is generated. From this drug substance further goes to a formulation, where formulation is developed and the drug substance is further formulated to develop a drug product, which finally goes to a fill finish stage where the product is filled in a vial and is ready for a market. So these are basically four stages how the process flows at a commercial scale for a production of uh, biosimilar or a biologics, if we say. So these are the some of the examples where of the already approved biosimilar products that has been approved. The list is more, but I have just listed a few. So that's all about my presentation. Thank you. A few.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta, for this, explaining from the very basics and then going into your project and all. Thank you very much. So the floor is now open for questions. So students, please go ahead and ask your question. And faculty members too, sorry. So maybe I will start, Dr. Gupta. So basically, what I can understand is you are dealing with protein drugs, right?
Yes, yes.
So any other biomolecule which are synthesized by the cells you people are looking, if it does not breach your confidentiality issues and all.
So basically, we are dealing with biologics. So it is basically antibodies. There are many fusion proteins that we do work on.
Okay, okay. So it is like mostly proteins only and no small
Yes.
biomolecules or, yeah.
No. Small molecule is completely different process. These are not. They are basically comes under generic category. So they most of the small molecules are synthesized from chemical processes.
Okay, okay, okay. So not we don't prefer cell as a source for the small molecules,
Yes, yes,
rather
yes.
the proteins. So almost all of the proteins, they are glycosylated and fucosylated and all those things, or is it only some segment only?
No, most of the protein. Most of
Most
the
of the
protein.
proteins. So yeah, protein aggregation during production is always a issue there. So you have, small change in temperature. I've seen that has decreased a lot. So that is really interesting to say that only, 1.5 degree you have reduced, and that has lowered the aggregation.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
to a large scale. Yeah, that was really interesting to notice. Yeah.
Yes, but the effect what I have shown it varies from molecule to molecule. The same change in degree might not be beneficial for other molecule, or a lowering in temperature may have some other effect on the basically on aggregation level.
But actually, Dr. Gupta, my own experience while working on a cloned protein, okay, which had the tendency to form some inclusion bodies. So I have seen that higher temperature increase the formation of inclusion bodies. So I have to lower the growth temperature of that bacteria. So it was DH5 alpha on which I was working, and it was histidine. It was histag GTPase that I had
Yes,
produced.
so you are correct, Dr. Jayata. So this protein, this temperature effect, it can vary from molecule to molecule. So what I have shown is basically from it's not a microbial product. It was a mammalian product. So
Oh, I
in
see.
my
Okay, I
yes,
missed
so
that point. Yeah, sorry.
yes. Actually, I have also not mentioned it. It was all what I have profile or whatever I have shown. It is basically a mammalian product.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Hmm.
So,
So
but
if
in
it is,
mammalian product too, you can see a variation effect. Even like what you said, that lowering of temperature can reduce to a lower high molecular weight formation. That's true.
Okay, so since we have known that it is a mammalian product, so if you can disclose, then what was the cell line, if
Uh,
you can disclose
uh,
it?
so actually, what I cannot disclose what I am working on, but this what paper I have referred to, they have used CHO K1 cell line, CHO S1, I think.
Okay, so Chinese hamster ovary cell
Yes,
lines, right? Yeah.
yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes,
Yeah. So I thought so because that is the most common cell line used in the
yes,
pharma
yes,
industries. I guess.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, 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 correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Gupta. That's all from my side. Come on, students. You can.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. So
Yes,
Rohit
sir.
wants to ask.
Rohit here. Sir,
Hi, Rohit.
actually, as you said in the lecture, the biosimilars undergo the same process of development like the generic medicines. So, is there any
Sorry,
particular
sorry,
difference?
sorry, sorry, sorry. Can you repeat, Rohit?
Sir, as you said in the lecture, the biosimilar drugs undergo the same process of development like the generic. So, is
Uh,
there any
uh,
particular difference between them?
no, Rohit. Actually, I think you have missed that point. What I said was that biosimilar uh, can be. It's not a same process of approval. It's not. I will explain you in detail. Like what I said was that concept of biosimilar is basically same as that of generics. Like in generic, once a patent get expired, we try to replicate this molecule, producing a generic molecule. Correct. So for a biosimilar, the approval process, what I have seen, but for a generic process, it is far more reduced. I will just share my screen. It is already shared. I have to share it. Just a minute.
No, you need to share again. You have
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
share.
Rohit, if you see, for a biosimilar molecule, it starts from analytics, but for a generic molecule, this development timeline reduces from 5 to 9 years to 1 to 2 years, because in this for a development of generic molecule, it is just a analytical this phase, and then it directly goes for a clinical phase 3, because of two things. One is analytics is generally are basically chemically synthesized. So once a process is established, the variability is very less. However, in case of a biosimilar which is produced from a live cells, you observe a far more variability. However, in case of generics, once you establish a process, first of all, you are able to characterize this molecule very easily. Other thing is that you don't see a lot to lot variability that much. So once you establish you get a molecule, you characterize it, you compare it with a innovator product. Once a characterization is complete, you directly go for phase 3. So there is not even a phase 1. It generally goes to phase 3. So that development time further reduces to 1 to 2 years, and the cost from 100 millions, it reduces to around 1 to 2 million, or probably more. If the worst case, it will be $10 million. So development of generics is far more simpler compared to a biosimilar. Rohit, hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anyone
Yeah,
has another?
so few people have posted their questions on the chat box. So Mr. Rajesh Dugane, he wants to know that what does the approval process for biosimilars involve?
So Rajesh, I have already told. So so this I will show. So first, in a biosimilar,
Uncle,
uh,
Dr. Ankur, you need to share the screen again.
okay, okay, sorry. So who has asked the questions? Rajesh, correct?
Yes,
Hello.
Mr.
Yeah,
Rajesh.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Rajesh, as I've already discussed that if you see this triangle, so for approval process of a biosimilar, it start with analytics. So basically you have to have lot of, it is basically depend upon the totality of evidence. Totality of evidence means how much evidence you have collected to say or to defend that the developed molecule is a biosimilar of a approved product. So how you do it? First, you do lot of characterization work where you characterize a developed molecule and compare it with it against a reference product. So that has a one package that you have characterized all the aspect of a protein produced, and then you go for a clinical preclinical studies. So these are basically a tox studies done with animals. Once you show that your clinically there is no meaningful significantly meaningful results, then compared to a reference standard, then you go for phase 1. So for at each stage you collect the data and you go to a regulatory bodies to show that your data is comparable to the reference product. And then for looking at the data, at each stage you get a permission to go for another stage. So once a preclinical study is passed, then you plan for a phase 1 study. Once you get a desired outcome from phase 1, then you go for a phase 3 study. And the amount of study that you need to do is depends upon the amount, it depends upon the how much evidence you have. That means how much characterization work you do. If the results are very good, you can have a very abbreviated study and you can claim that your product is ready for the approval or for commercialization. Rajesh, have I answered your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other
The
question?
yeah, next question is from Mr. Savind Chaudhary. He has asked that why is insulin not considered as a biologic and companies like Sanofi and Eli Lilly still get their patent exclusively?
No, they are biologics. Who said that it is who is Savin? Savin, they are biologics, and Sanofi and Lilly, not only they, even our Indian company Biocon is also producing insulin. Savin,
Savind, can you hear us? Yes, Savind, I can see Savind, but it might be some network problem might be there. Yeah. Anyway, so the next question is from okay, Savind has replied that mic issue, ma'am. So Savind, hope
okay.
your doubt is answered. You can write in the chat if it is okay, or if you have something else to ask. Anyways, till Savind writes it, we would move to next question, which is from Mr. Pawan Mishra. He is asking that what are different characterization techniques used for characterizing biologics?
Yes, Pawan, good question. So there are many analytical tools that are used to characterize a molecule. Like if you want to see aggregation level, you use size exclusion. You use RPHPLC for analyzing a glycosylation levels, ICE, SEC, mass spectroscopy. These all are used for characterization of molecules.
Okay. So any other question? Okay, so Dr. Parag Nemade has asked a question that how is biologic produces loss to purification?
Yes. Much of okay. So Parag, what happens that while a produce so in a chromatography it is like it's it when we give a harvest or a outcome from generally a batch, when we finish a batch sorry amount of culture produced, we call it a harvest. When this harvest is given to downstream, so there are many unit operations. So the harvest is basically culture along with the cells. Okay, so there are many unit operation, like they start with the centrifugation or depth filtration. So at each stage, this is to remove the undesired product. So along with the undesired product, lot of desired product is also get removed. So the objective is to get a maximum recovery, but every time it is not possible. Many of the time, along with the undesired product, the main product get also lost. So 100% recovery is not. I have never seen 100% recovery. It is always that along with the with the undesired product, desired product, some amount of the desired product is lost. But we in downstream we make sure that the whatever we lose is not much, so that we can get a maximum outcome.
No, I think what Nemade sir is meaning to us is that I think he wants an idea that how much fraction or percentage is lost usually, as per your experience or.
Around 30% is typically we hear. So what if a process is optimized or a unit operation or optimized, we can get to little higher also. But around 70% we do get to recovery. That means 30% product loss.
Okay, so how will you rate this? Like 70%, is it okay, or you would always, always we need a good purification,
Exactly.
but still.
Actually, what there are many factors that are involved to. We cannot rate any process. Okay, so it is like you said that it is always desirable to have 100% recovery, but it is not possible. So sometimes 70% is good, sometimes it is not. So it varies case to case.
Yes, of course. In fact, in biologics, actually, it becomes more difficult with the cells and
Exactly.
everything. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but still, like many chromatography companies, when they sell the columns and all, they claim about 80 to 90% purity. So you don't find that.
We can find it. See, we can find it. What they claim is on the ideal condition, but process they what I can say that they claim for a higher end, but you may able to get it, you may not able to get it.
Okay.
And it depends upon the cell line used, it depends upon the media used, it depends upon the molecule that is used for the recovery or purification. All these
Yes, I
factors
think
depend.
whether it is secreted out or is retained inside the cell, that might also be a factor, I guess.
Retain inside. Dr. Joeta, if you what you are saying is correct, but if a molecule is retained inside the cell, then there is a one more additional factor, unit operation of sonication or
Yes,
where you
yes.
lyse the cell, correct? So then in that case, what I am talking about is a mammalian recovery. From microbial, it is far more lower.
Right, right, of course, yeah. More complicated system, of course,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So Mr. Savind has further clarified his question. He actually meant to ask that why there are no generic or other biosimilar insulin as in the US insulin sometimes costs more than $500 per dose.
$500. So actually, Savin, the cost of insulin has drastically reduced. So there are no generic, because it is not a generic product. It's a rather than a biosimilar. So generic means why biosimilar or biologics is far better than generic product is due to its specificity. Okay, and the after it is given to a patient, the chances of adverse reaction in of using a after using a biosimilar is far less, while generic can have a very strong side effects. Okay, so basically biologics is used because of its specificity. So that is one thing. And the cost of insulin, Savin, has drastically reduced. Definitely not $500 per dose, it has reduced. So because insulin is lot of work has been done in insulin, and it is produced at very in very bulk state. So cost has reduced now.
So any more questions, anyone else?
Okay, Sound. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, so if we don't have any more questions, then I would like to thank you, Dr. Ankur Gupta. I would also take this opportunity to let you know that our IMTech students, they have in-plant training sessions every alternate trimester. So I
Okay.
hope Aurobindo Pharma will be open for us.
Sure, sure,
Yeah, but
sure,
after this pandemic and everything is over, so obviously we will contact you. Maybe through you, we can just send some students for some in-plant
sure,
training.
sure.
Yeah, okay. So, Lahoti sir, please take a note. Uh, so, Mr. Sharad Lahoti, he is the
Yeah.
associate
Noted,
dean
ma'am.
from
Thank
the
you.
industry.
Thank you, Dr. Ankur. Thank you. We'll contact you.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much, Dr. Ankur Gupta, for this wonderful talk, and I thank you from the whole ICT Marathwada Jalna campus family. So, and hope we will again interact in future. Thank you.
Sure,
Goodbye.
sure. I hope. Thank you all. Thank you for being a patient listener. Thank you.